So now let's see. Okay, so all the equipment I think is right now. So good morning or good day. It's a nice day here in Redwood City because we've had a nice rainstorm overnight, and we certainly needed it here. So I would like to try something different this week for this 7 o'clock time, this guided meditation time. And that is not to do a guided meditation, but to allow you to have these minutes in silence. We've been doing, for many of us, guided meditations now for, since the beginning of the pandemic. And there's also a great value in sitting silently and quietly in community in this way. I know some of you will be disappointed, but just for this 1 week. And I hope that the teachings, the instructions you've received now over this time will, come to fruit. And as you sit for these minutes quietly, about 25 minutes we'll have, and then I'll give the teachings for this week, starting at 7:30. And so without anything more to say, please settle in, and maybe in the silence of practice you'll be more receptive or ready for the teachings that will come today. So then as we come to the end of this sitting, to spend a few moments reflecting on how whatever benefits have come or whatever has we've learned from this meditation about ourselves, about presence, attention, silence, stillness, how can it be beneficial as we go into the world? How can we benefit others through what we've had this morning? To be able to reflect on benefiting this world is one of the great benefits of treasures of spending quiet time meditating, to come out of that wishing for the welfare and happiness of all beings. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. And may all beings everywhere be free. Okay. So, so for this week, the theme will be oneself. So the focus is on a relationship to oneself. And I was a little surprised that this came up as a theme for this time of the year. I had thought perhaps this was a better time for something like loving kindness or compassion or generosity as we get into the holiday season. But then I thought that, no, I think that a focus on oneself to kind of come into a better space, a better way of being with oneself, can prepare ourselves to be in the social world, those of us who are going to be more social perhaps, or more interactive during the holiday season. So oneself. It's a little bit of a surprising theme for Buddhists sometimes because of sometimes an excessive emphasis on not self, and it seems like we shouldn't talk about self at all. But if you find look in the teachings of the Buddha, he often talked about used the word self. The Pali word is atta, A-T-T-A, in positive sense. I believe without any fear, concern that it would be misunderstood as being a metaphysical self. or being some kind of permanent self or permanent existential self. That somehow the ordinary idea of oneself is a valuable and useful reference point for understanding ourselves and our lives. And and I think that to some degree there's this wonderful interactiveness and balance in ancient teachings of the Buddha between a certain kind of individualism and a certain kind of collectivism, a certain kind of emphasis on personal agency and what we can do, and an emphasis on being open, receptive, connected with others in the world around us. And the combination of those is a fascinating way of living this life. And I'll say more about that in a couple of minutes, but I wanted to read a passage from the Dhammapada where this word self is atta is used. And here it's being translated as oneself. If one knew oneself to be precious, one would guard oneself with care. The sages watch over themselves in any part of the night. So I think that sages often stay up and meditate through the night, so they're caring for each other, caring for themselves. This idea, if one knew oneself to be precious, one would guard oneself with care. And it also goes on and says, oneself indeed is one's own protector. What other protector could there be? With self-control, one gains a protector hard to obtain. So having the agency of being one's own protector, and what other protector could there be? Many of us are hoping others will protect us, others will make us safe. If only other people would behave in a certain way, then we will be safe. And it's common these days for plenty of people to say that they're not safe, and then insist that others change how they are to make them safe. And there's some value to that, and we don't want to discredit its importance of doing that at times. But there's also something very important about learning how to be one's own protector, and learning how to find safety within. And here it's said it's obtained through self-control. One gains a protector hard to obtain. And so one of the ways I would like to present this idea that each of us for ourselves is precious, each of us for ourselves is dear, is through the notion of self-respect, respecting ourselves. And respect has this wonderful combination of having agency, we're doing something, and also a kind of openness, a kind of making space for, a kind of letting go of conceit and self-concern for something to, that which we respect, to give some kind of care to it or deference to it. Generally we think that it's easier to understand with other people or some other parts of reality if we have respect for it. So to respect someone is a powerful act that we generate from inside of us when it's done wisely, and then at the same time as this taking agency for this respect, having this respect for someone, there's also a kind of putting oneself a little bit aside, hopefully in a healthy way, a little bit of a deference to the other, making space for the other person that we respect. It's kind of like hospitality as one of these things where these dual activities is there. That on one hand, we are the agent of offering hospitality to someone. And in offering hospitality, there is a kind of self-forgetting, it's kind of putting oneself aside for the purpose of supporting, helping, hosting someone else. I think generosity also has this dual action of agency that we do, but also a giving away. And perhaps compassion is the same way, that we can generate compassion, care for others, and at the same time is caring for others. And a certain kind of healthy way we're putting ourselves aside, our preferences and things. So respect is that way, and that dual kind of relationship can be towards ourselves. We can have agency in deciding or having respect for ourselves, giving ourselves respect, and at the same time as doing that, letting go of conceit, letting go of certain kind of preferences for what we do and what we should do, so that we can really know ourselves better, feel ourselves better, be present for us in a bigger way. And so this idea of we are important enough, we're valuable enough, that we are appropriate object of our own respect. And just like everyone we can respect, there's a certain kind of way of valuing and seeing the worth of every human being, and not to leave ourselves out of that, to have respect for ourselves, to have care for ourselves. The movement of love in Buddhism is not a movement where everyone is loved but oneself, but it's a movement of love that includes ourselves. So I think of sometimes as the heart, the emotional heart, being kind of like a light bulb. And you turn it on, the light, maybe it's, the room gets filled quickly with light, but if it went, the first light shines on ourselves, and then it shines on what's around us. The love, the care, the respect first goes through us, and then into the world around us. And it's my hope that if we have self-respect, we actually have more substance in ourselves for respecting others. That we show up more fully when we have self-respect. And the more fully we show up, the more we're there to care, love, be friendly, supportive, kind to other people. The self-respect that we're allowed to live, we're allowed to be. We don't have to be apologetic for ourselves, defend ourselves. We don't have to be self-effacing. We don't have to kind of not count. We're allowed to count so that we can let everyone else count better. We're allowed to be worthy and full so that we can offer the gift of attention and presence and space for other people as well. So this idea of refuge, oneself is the refuge of oneself. What other refuge can there be? So again, the idea of protector, we're our own protector, our own refuge. And so how do we make ourselves a refuge for ourselves? How do we protect ourselves? And how do we... So I would like to say that it takes some agency. It's not kind of just trusting that we're innately good or that everything is wonderful about ourselves, which some people are so eager to feel because there's maybe such a low negative self-image. That's a balm, it's a kind of medicine to hear that you're worthy and wonderful. But the way to give substance to it is through agency. And the Buddha gave a number of things. One was through living ethically. That the more we can live ethically, the more self-respect there can be. So we kind of create the conditions to have self-respect. And in that regard, one way to develop self-respect is not that we are automatically ethical, but rather we have a commitment, some people would say a vow, to live as ethically as we can, and to learn from our ethical mistakes to try to do better in the future. That kind of attitude, I think, warrants more self-respect. And so the idea of making a commitment, making a vow, is a very, I think, powerful thing to do. The other thing that can, for making ourselves a refuge or self-respect, is to develop mindfulness, to have the self-awareness, enough self-awareness to see how we undermine ourselves, how we criticize ourselves, how we doubt ourselves, and then not believe it so much. Be able to see it clearly enough and fully enough that we begin trusting the seeing, the knowing, the perception. Wow, there it is again, that habit of mine to be self-negating. But I see it. And the word respect, as you know, many of you know, it comes from the word to see again, the Latin word, respect. And so this idea of mindfulness, really being able to see, and see with care, see with kindness, see with a certain kind of openness, so that there's this, we're not caught in the negative self-talk. And begin having respect that we can do this. We can meet our negativity with kindness, with care, with openness. That's respect-worthy. And so and then the last one, I think the last one I want to read here is a fascinating poem by the Buddha, verse. A person should not give oneself away, should not give oneself up. Beautiful speech should be released. Malevolent speech should not. So this idea of one should not give oneself away. To have self-respect, we never give ourselves away, though we might do that dual action where there's self-respect and we get out of the way to we get rid of we let go of our conceit. We kind of respect powerfully with agency, put aside our own preferences sometimes for the benefit of others, but we're not giving ourselves away. We're not giving up on anything, not giving up on ourselves. So the theme for this week is oneself, and the topic for today is respect, self-respect. And I suspect that not many of you have thought about this in relationship to yourself. Some of you probably have. And maybe for today you can reflect on this idea of self-respect. What does it mean for you? Maybe talk to friends and family about what it might mean and how this idea of self-respect can be beneficial for you and maybe significant, maybe even powerful for you to live with greater self-respect, to find how to have self-respect, to tap into self-respect. And so reflect on this topic and look at it and live with it for the day. And then tomorrow we'll go on in other aspects of focusing on oneself. So, thank you.